Good afternoon. I'm Mayor Tom Barrett, and I'm here to talk about the events that occurred last night. Last night it was about 5:40 when I was watching my daughter play rugby, and as often is the case, I got a text message on my telephone. The text message doesn't say a lot, but it began a series of events, began describing a series of events that I think we all recognize led to actually 3 deaths that occurred last night. These are unfortunately common messages that I receive on my telephone. Message: D7 shooting, District 7 shooting, double. At that point, and I'm going to read this verbatim, black male 39, gunshot wound to chest, pulseless, not breathing. Black male 15, gunshot wound to the shoulder, conscious and breathing. Black male 2 years of age, possibly run over. 4619 North 48th Street, 5:11 p.m., Squad 7212, Sergeant Grimm. That short text message doesn't tell what happened. It gave me enough information to know that there was something bad that happened near 48th and Hampton. But as the events unfolded through the evening, it became clear that this was a horrific event that underscores many of the challenges that we face in this city. So what happened? There was a party. There was a party, and there were streamers at the party. It was a festive occasion, and a 2-year-old wandered off into the street. As that 2-year-old was in the street, a working man, a 41-year-old man, was traveling on 48th Street and struck the child and tragically killed the child. Usually, you would say, fortunately, he stayed at the scene, because he made the decision to stay at the scene and did not flee, which is something that we face occasionally here in the city of Milwaukee. He got out of his vehicle. He was grieving. He was upset. He was standing over the child, were the reports that I received from the police. At that point, individuals came from the party. Someone got angry. Someone took a gun and basically assassinated this gentleman. Additional shots were fired. A 15-year-old was killed at the same time. 3 deaths. 3 deaths. Started out as a tragedy, as an accident. But the total loss of control, the total inability to control oneself in that setting led to 2 more tragic deaths. Maybe an hour later, another text came through my phone while I was still at the game, and my wife was reading it now. I handed it to her, and she said, "Oh, this is it." And I said, no, that's a different one. And she read that one. 40-year-old man shot a 22-year-old man. They knew each other. They knew each other. So in the span of 3 or 4 hours on a beautiful Sunday evening, we have 4 people who die. This is news. But is it enough news to make our community, and when I say our community, the people who live in our city, is it enough news to make our state lawmakers, our federal lawmakers, candidates for president, to pause and say, what's going on here? Because that's the question we have to ask. What's going on here? And it's not just Milwaukee. Shootings are up in New York, they're up in Baltimore, they're up in St. Louis, they're up in Chicago. What is happening? Well, we know several things are happening. We know that there are more guns that are flooding the streets of our cities. We know we had 7, 8 candidates rushing to the altar of the NRA to say how they're protecting freedoms. No freedoms were protected last night in Milwaukee when those 4 people died. 3 of them because of gunshots. I'm here to be a freedom fighter for the people who live in this city, who want to be able to enjoy nice spring evenings. So what have we experienced so far this year? Our homicides year to date are up 160%, from 14 to 39. Our non-fatal shootings year to date are up 38%. So your first question is, well, what are the police doing? Well, I'll tell you what the police are doing. The police have taken 628 guns off our streets so far this year. a 19% increase over 2014. No increase in police staffing levels would have prevented the horrific tragedy on 48th Street yesterday. None. So there has to be something else and another way for us to deal with these issues. We can talk about families, we can talk about churches, we can talk about schools, we can talk about the lack of hope, but we also have to understand who the victims are and what is going on in our nation's cities. I said that 39 of the homicide victims this year, of those 39, 31 or 32 are African American. 31 or 32, I don't know what the exact number is, but 31 or 32 of the 39 homicide victims this year are African American. I'm talking about this because Black lives matter. These lives matter. And there's a lot of attention, and there should be a lot of attention locally and nationally on relations between communities and police departments. And our police departments have to do a better job in working with the community. But someone has to step forward and say, Black lives matter when you're talking about 31 or 32 out of 39 victims in 4 months. Many of these individuals knew each other. What we're seeing is an increase in homicides of people who knew each other. So this is not a situation where our city is unsafe. Our city is not unsafe. Our city is a safe city. But what we know is that approximately 80% of the victims and 80% of the perpetrators of homicides in this city have interactions with the police department. And 80% of the victims are African American. I'm talking about this because I believe Black lives matter. And we need to have a state government that's going to devote resources to this issue. I need the Attorney General to have his office engaged with our police department directly. I need him to help us in the legislature and the governor to get more resources to our district attorney's office so we can have more prosecutions of gun crimes. I don't want to lock up more people who are carrying a nickel bag of marijuana, but I do want to lock up more people who get involved in gunfights in parks, on streets, outside taverns, because Black lives matter. This community has to face the reality that the gun laws that this state has put forward over the last few years, as proud as it makes the governor and the legislature feel, has resulted in more guns on the streets of the city of Milwaukee. And if they're proud that there are more guns on the streets of the city of Milwaukee, and occasionally you're going to have someone who's going to use a gun and it's going to stop a crime, but we know what's happened. What's happened is there have been more and more shootings. It is time for the legislature, for the governor to focus on the violence that we have here. It's time that we have all of the elements of our criminal justice system recognize the seriousness of this problem, because it's only April. It's only April. And I'm going to put more resources. We've committed $2 million in additional resources for police overtime because we know this has to play a part of it. But our police chief was on the phone today with the hierarchy of the New York City Police Department. And we have more charges this year for gun crimes than they do in New York City. And we'll have the police chief get you those exact numbers. So it's not a situation where our police are not doing their job. Our police are doing an excellent job. An excellent job. But we have to make sure that the resources are there so that the individuals, again, who commit crimes with guns, in particular violent crimes with guns, are prosecuted and incarcerated. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, but I am committed to working with all elements of this system to make sure that this city This city is as safe as we can be. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mayor, I saw the chief as I was walking in, he was leaving, and I'm wondering if there's a reason he's not here talking to us about this violence.
Because I wanted to talk about it myself.
Well, can you tell us a little bit about the police investigation?
I think you probably know. I think they just released additional information. They're looking for the individual who shot the 15-year-old and shot the driver, and they're actively looking for that individual.
Do you know that he was carrying, is any information that would suggest he was carrying a firearm illegally?
I don't know that right now. I don't know that. But you can imagine the police chief is very, very concerned about this. He's very agitated about it.
But he wouldn't come in and talk. I asked him.
No, but I said I felt this was something that I needed to do.
Can you urge him to talk to us?
I'm sure he'll talk to you. I'm sure he'll talk to you.
Mayor, are you concerned about the message this might be sending to other people who want to do the right thing in a situation like this?
Oh, of course I am. Of course. I mean, here we had a working man, 4 kids, son of a preacher, driving on a Sunday afternoon, a horrific accident. He gets out and he does the right thing, and he loses his life. But the lack of control of whoever fired that gun, it's beyond comprehension that you have something like that happen. But again, you've got this horrible combination, this toxic formula of lack of control, and let's just flood these streets with more guns. Let's just flood these streets with more guns. And this is what you're getting as a result.
The governor has, suggested it's a mental health issue, not a gun control issue. Any thoughts?
The governor went to the NRA convention and just knelt before that altar, and you don't see any of them involved in the urban violence that we see, the slow motion mass murders. They just totally wash their hands of it.
Have you heard any early things from Hillary Clinton as to how she, as long as you brought up the presidential?
Oh, I'll say about anybody. I want.
But have you heard any signs that she would be more aggressive on guns?
I can tell you that when I was in Congress, President Clinton was certainly engaged in this issue.
Last question?
Mayor, can you confirm that the 15-year-old and the 2-year-old are related?
I cannot confirm that. I don't know that for certain, but I cannot confirm that at this time. Thank you very much.